All right. So yeah, let's kind of continue on and improve upon our solution here. So as I kind of hinted at earlier, we're kind of processing our data in a manual way. So let me share my screen here. All right. So yeah, we coded up our CRUD capabilities. We added some templates, template HTML files in our views. We have various methods to handle all the CRUD capabilities, where we have a home page that just shows all of our events, event detail page, which shows a particular event and just renders it. We also have the ability to create new events or update existing events. And we kind of clean up that code a little bit. Our HTML file was a little messy because my Django syntax was not great. But yeah, we accomplished all that. But now I want to talk about Django model forms. So again, this is usually the preferred way of going about creating and handling form data, because it's kind of automatic, or just like, again, the magic's kind of done behind the scenes, so we don't have to reinvent the wheel. So form processing is something that's common enough where Django has kind of a better way to go about it. So let's talk about that. So if we go back to our views, again, as mentioned before, we're kind of processing all the data ourselves. We're capturing it. We also need to validate it at some point and save it. So let's actually take a look at how Django allows us to do this a little easier. So the first thing I'm going to do is go to some documentations. Let's go Django model form. All right, so again, as always, Django has pretty good documentation for what we're trying to accomplish. But essentially, we just need to create a new class that, that inherits from ModelForm and uses our model that we're trying to tie to it. And the rest of it is kind of handled for us. So the syntax will look similar to this, where we have a class, we have a nested class called meta. We need to specify the model and the fields we want to expose, and then the rest should be handled for us. So let's do that for our event calendar here. So if I go back to my coding window, we have our event model here. I'm going to create a new file in my app folder. I'm going to call it forms.py. You can name it whatever you want, but generally just want to be consistent with naming. So in this case, forms.py. And here I'm going to want to import from Django, import forms. And then I want to also include my model here. So from events.models, import events was our model there. Okay, so here I want to create a new class. I'm going to call it event form. Again, that naming is up to you, but you generally want to name it something sensible. And we're going to inherit from forms.model form. All right, so another way I could import this, if I do dot forms here, I could do model form here, get rid of this forms. All right, so we're inheriting from model forms. And as we saw in our example and the documentation, we need a nested class of meta. This class must be named meta. You can name whatever you want for your form, but the inner class must be meta, because that is just, again, the structure that Django looks for. So in this case, I'm going to do class meta. Inside that, I need two values. One is model. So we're going to specify a model here. So our model in this case is going to be events. And then fields. This is where we can control what fields we want to allow the user to edit. For example, we may not want the user to edit the created at value, because that's going to be something automatic. So we don't need to list all the fields. In this case, I'm going to say name is editable, description. Let's say starts at should be configurable. So obviously, if you're creating an event, you should be able to control when it starts and ends, but we're not going to expose the created at. So to review, we have 5 fields here. We're not exposing the created at field. We're going to say these 4 fields are editable, and this one is protected, as in the user won't have access to that. Make sense? Okay, so continuing on, we created our form here. Now, if we go to our view, How do I want to do this? I'm going to keep my existing code just so we have it, but I'm going to create new methods. So is that the way I want to do it? Nah, let's just update my existing methods. All right, so my home page can remain the same. Event detail, nothing fancy there. For my create and update, I want to update the way I'm doing this stuff here. So first thing I want to do is import that form. So from events.forms, import event form so that I can use it in this file. Now, instead of doing this business here, I want to take, what do I want to do? Okay, so I'm going to create, what's the best way to do this? So event ID, I'm going to change this a little bit. So sorry about that. Okay, sorry, just turn off my notifications there. All right, so I have events that we pass in. I'm just going to pass in the event ID instead. So let me modify my code here. This a little simpler. All right, so process form will take in an event ID and use that ID if it has one. So get rid of all this stuff, I think. So default value is going to be none. So we don't pass in anything, then it should default to none. So then we want an event. So event's going to equal, let's see, if we have an event ID, we're going to do event.objects.get pk equals event ID. If event ID is not none. All right, so we're running a ternary here, else we'll create a new event. All right, the syntax looks kind of messy, but hopefully you guys can parse it. So basically, if event ID is not none, we want to use that event ID to get a particular event. Else, if we don't pass in anything, that's the case where we're creating a new event. We just want to create a new event object. All right, so that's there. Then we have our event. We could update it and save it. So that should be all the same. Okay, let's make sure we didn't break anything. So create or update. It's going to be event is none. Okay, cool. Let's take a look at this. So refresh. Let's go update barbecue events. All right, we still update it. Let's say barbecue event updated. Submit. Updated events. Let's take a look at that. All right, looks like it got updated. So I don't think we broke any functionality. Let's create a new event. Just make sure we didn't break that. So I probably want a button here to create a new event. Quickly do that. Go to my homepage. Let's add it here. We want to anchor it. We want a button that does something, say new event. And we got a link to one of our routes. So remember how to do that. We type URL. And then, quotes. URL, then the route name. So in this case, event is our app name. Our route name was it event create. And we don't want to pass any parameters to that. So let's see if that takes care of it. I'm going to save here. Refresh. All right, we have a button. All right, that says update event. That's not what we want. So where is it? Our views. Let's see, if we pass in no event ID, event is none should be true. Update events. All right, so this should be creating a new one. It should say update. I don't know what I screwed up in my form here. Form here. Create or update, yes, no. So I looked at the Django syntax over lunch. So this is how you could do a ternary values. If you do a pipe and yes, no, that gives you an option to specify the yes and no conditions. So it's defaulting to update event. Not sure why that would be happening. So creator update event is none. Event ID is none. I guess I could try that. Okay. So refresh. There we go. So create event. Let's create a new event. Let's just say graduation party and cousins party in Ohio. All right. So that's incorrect also, but all right, we got graduation party there. All right, cool. So it looks like we have the same functionality. Some other things, that should be ID again. All right, so that's working fine. Let's switch to using that model form, that event form that we created. So instead of doing all this business, we kind of clean it up. So the way we clean it up is we create, so doing this, we could do something like events equals event form. And then here, we need to simply pass it the request. So we'll do request.post, and we have an instance. So let's see, instance equals event. So event form. Let's call this event form. All right, so we have an event form, and then now we could, instead of doing all this stuff, we should be able to, let's see, take this, replace all this stuff. All right, so what's going on here is we're basically passing the dictionary to our event form. Our event form should be able to process it. But the key thing here is we need to make sure our names match. So what's going to happen is this event form is going to look, let's go to our form. It's going to look for fields by these names. So it's going to look for something called name, description, starts at, and ends at. The problem here is if I go back to my form here, remember I gave my names a little differently. I appended underscore field to my names. So I need to clean those up. So these need to match the exact names of the fields in my model when you're using ModelForm. If you're not using ModelForm, then you have the liberty to name it whatever you want, because obviously you're doing it manually. But in this case, I do not have at liberty with ModelForm. All right, so let me clean up those names. So again, this name right here, description, should match exactly what I specified in my model. And that's reflected here too. All right, well, if those names align, everything should work kind of automatically, because this post dictionary we pass into the event form. The event form will take care of extracting all the data and assigning it correctly. Any questions? So let's see if this actually works still as before, or if we need to make any other changes. So let's go to update event. All right, this looks like it's still working. Maybe I should refresh the page, update. Yep, graduation party, got some exclamations, submit, error with event processing. All right, this is where we can do a try catch. All right, so error here. Okay, so we get an error. Let's see what error we're getting. Let's go back, submit. That's not any better. Here with processing. Okay, let's take a look at our console here. This event could not be changed because data didn't validate. So I think it's back to my, let's see. All right, this is a great time to maybe debug. So I tried debugging before. Let's try actually see if we can debug here. let me stop my server. I'm going to kill my server here. Control C. Let's try debugging with VS Code. So it is a few more steps, but it is possible. So I'm going to try to debug here. Python file. So I need to specify I want to launch manage.py. And then I need to specify some args. So arguments will be, as we type into the terminal, run server. And then the port will be 8000 or whatever you want it to be. All right, so it should launch manage.py, but we need to make sure we have the correct path. So that's located in events, event calendar /manage.py. All right, let's see if this actually works, or if we need to specify something else. I think this is not going to work. Let's give it a shot. All right, set up my configuration. Let's try running that. I should get a Django error, I think. Maybe. Yeah. All right. Let's fix that. I ran into this problem on Friday, and it is kind of frustrating trying to figure it out. So settings. So we're at settings.json. Here I need to specify a Python path. So let's see if I can find it. Is it event? That's .vnv /bin /Python 3.9. So basically, you need to tell VS Code which Python version you want to run. So in this case, I want to use my virtual environment. Usually, you should be able to select it from down here, but it's not showing up here. So I don't know why this doesn't work when I want it to work.
Hey, Ocker, does this look like in your bash terminal that you're in a virtual environment? Does that matter?
That is a good observation. Usually when you run it through VS Code, it should automatically find it for you. So that's why I always have a struggle, because I've definitely done it before, but it seems like whenever I actually try to do it during a lecture, it just doesn't want to do it. Like usually in your path, you should have an option to select that virtual environment. So I don't know why it doesn't like it. Let me try relaunching my VS Code, and if that fails, then I might not be able to debug here. All right, let's see what happens. All right, there we go. So I reloaded my VS Code. Now I have this option to select my virtual environment Python, not the one on my system. So I select that. Now let's try running this debug here. Fingers crossed that that works. All right, there we go. So again, it is kind of, I don't want to say buggy, kind of tricky. It might be buggy, I'm not sure. The VS Code should let you select which Python you want to use. So again, I'm clicking on the bottom panel here where it has Python listed. If you click on that, it should give you an option of what you want to select. You want to select the one that's in your virtual environment folder. So now I'm actually using the Python that's in that virtual environment folder as opposed to the one on my system or some other version. Once you have that specified, you should be able to debug kind of as before. Just go into the start debug, set up your config file, and now I'm actually debugging. If you look at my terminal, I have my server running, and the whole point of this was to like actually set up breakpoints in my views, which I've done. So let's go back to our page here, refresh. All right, so let's actually see what's going on here. So I'm going to add a bunch of explanations, hit submit, and there we go. I hit my breakpoint, so I'm actually debugging while running Django. So let's see what our post data has. Has the correct updated value. So name and description are fields here. Let's go one more. All right, so the form seems to have worked, but the save is the thing that's going to go wrong. Yep, so if I look at the errors here, I don't know if you guys can see it. Let me know if you guys can't read the description here, but in my errors, I guess, dictionary for the form, it says starts at, this field is required. And the reason it's required is because on our model form, if you go back to that, is saying that all of these values, I guess, have to be supplied by the user. So starts at, ends at currently are empty. So that's something we need to fix. And we can do that with the next step of using model forms. So looking at my form here, I'm manually kind of specifying which fields I want and what values going where. So again, I had this kind of ugly if else block that kind of repeated code. Model forms makes it much, much easier. So I'm actually going to just delete all this stuff. All right, so I still have a form. I still have my button, which is required. CS to RF token still required. But now all I simply do is if I do, let's see, form, let's call it event form as paragraph. So I need to pass in an event form to my template, and that can be easily done via my view. So I go here, in my data, let's pass in an event form. All right, so we create the form up here. Let's do that here. That's what we needed to. All right, so we're passing an event form object to our template, our HTML template. Once we do that in our HTML file, we simply had to call event form as paragraph, or you can render it some other way. And it should take care of all the form making for you. So again, your templates become much easier if you're using model form. So let's save that. Don't want to delete my code. All right, if I save that, refresh here. All right, that went away. Event form, update events. Let's see, graduation party, update event. So our form disappeared because event form needs to be there. All right, so views. To create an event form up here, we want to pass it as a form object here. So let's see what we're actually passing here. So I refresh this page, show my breakpoint, data, event form. Let's see, a better way to read this. Let's go up here. All right, so event form, what's in there? Change data. All right, so all that stuff is required. Just trying to render my form here. All right, let's hit the docs as paragraph. All right, so this is a manual form. We want to use model form. All right, let's try it that way. Continue. All right, there's our form. We get some error messages here. All right, so not the best layout here still, but we have more, like, we have, I guess, some error checking involved here. So if I enter some name here, Let's see. Why is this not looking good though? So that's what I'm trying to do here. So that you could render as a table, as a paragraph, as a list. That's what I want. Oh, that's what I was doing. Anyone see what I'm doing wrong here? So form, event form as P. Okay, that worked. I'm not sure what I was working for. So as P just renders as paragraph, so you get some nice formatting. I prefer as table. So if you want to use as a table, just use as table, but you need to nest this within a table. So this one aligns stuff a little better. So you pass it form, do it as table, and that should clean this up a little bit more. So yeah, I like that rendering better, but kind of up to you what you want to choose. So let's go back and stuff. All right, let's create a new event. All right, so this is what the fields look like. Let's create a new event. Let's say get dry cleaning. These aren't really events, these are more to-do lists. Let's say Vegas trip. Heading to Vegas with friends. Let's do a start date, 2021, August 1st. Let's say that's going to be for 2 days. Submit. And why aren't you looking? What's in the why did that do anything? All right, is this where I need the action back? Let's see. No, that should be fine. All right, can we set some breakpoints here? Use. All right, that's not even in there. So action, let's try adding an action. I'm not sure if that's what I'm missing here. So I go to my form, specify my action here. Action equals something. No, don't think that's what I need. Let's see. Button type submit. Test. Okay, let's see if my logic's incorrect. So I create an event, that's none.
I'm a little confused. Why would you be in a post method before you click the button?
So I'm not even setting my breakpoint there. I'm trying to set it in my process event form. So yeah, I shouldn't be getting to post just when I'm rendering the form, but my breakpoint's not even being hit right now. Because my renderer is down here. So events.form is rendered from process event form, but my breakpoint is not even being hit. So maybe I need to restart my server and let's see if that somehow fixes it. Go back, new event. Okay, my breakpoint gets hit now. Not sure what was wrong before. Form, continue. And then test. Okay, not sure what got broken before. Maybe I changed the code and didn't refresh it. So we step through this, we get an event, none. That's fine. Continue on. Okay, that seemed to work. I have no idea what was going on before. All right, new event got created. So let's see if that's actually true. All right, so our test event got created. Cool. Let's see if we can update it. So go back here. So in this case, we specify an instance. So in this case, since we have an event ID, look at that. The event ID is 9. That's the event that we're kind of updating. So I step through it, we get an event. That event you want to specify as the instance value for your form so that it can grab the values from your current event and pre-populate the fields for you. Kind of like we're doing it manually before. If we do that now, that still doesn't happen. This is kind of frustrating. To get that, should be empty. I see. So maybe John was saying this post should be here. Well, let's see. Should have pre-populated the values here. All right. What form? All right, let's take a quick break. I don't want to waste too much time reading documentation on screen. Let's take a 7-minute break while I try to figure out why my form is not cooperating. Yeah, let's take a 7-minute break and let's be back. And hopefully I'll have this figured out by then. Apologies for the errors here. All right, so during the break, looked up some examples online. This or none is what I was missing for my form here. So when we're simply rendering the form, we don't have this post dictionary. So in that case, we don't want to use anything from there. We just want to specify no data to initialize with. In that case, it kind of cleans up our form. So when we go to create a new event, those errors are no longer there. If you remember before, there's messages saying, hey, your name can't be blank, description can't be blank, or they're required. That shouldn't be the default, display when the user's just getting to the form. So in this case, let's specify a new event. Let's say New Year's Eve as our event. Let's celebrate the coming of 2022. Let's say, that's going to be on 12/31 at 11 or 2300. And let's say that goes until 01 of the new year. So that's gonna be 2022. And let's say it just goes to 1 a.m. All right, so if you create a new event gets created. It's right there. Let's say, we want to update an existing event, go to tests. This test event I created, let's actually fill that out. So I've got to update event. Notice that the values are still pre-populated to what I entered before. So I could update that to, let's just say, National Parks trip. Visiting Glacier National Park with friends. All right, so hit submit, updated events, looks good. Go back to it. There we go. So after that detour, let's just kind of summarize what ModelForms does for us. So if you look at our models, that hasn't changed. We created a form using that model. And again, the coding for it is very minimal. Here, I just have 4 lines of code. Just creating a class, creating a nested class. And the 2 main items are specify what model you're tying to your model form, and also what fields you want to expose. So in this case, I don't have all my fields exposed. I have name, description, starts at, ends at, but my created at field is not exposed currently. So the user can't edit the created at attribute. All right, once I have my form here, if I look at my views, views are kind of simpler. You just create an event form object. You got to know what you got to pass into it. So in this case, if you do have a post request, your post dictionary will have items in it. Otherwise, just use none. And then if you have an existing event, so in this case, if we pass in an event ID for an update case, we should get an event back from our database. And that's going to be, you set it to the instance, so it knows the pre-populated fields. Otherwise, if the event is none, in the case where we're creating a new event, nothing will be pre-populated. You do a similar action where you save the form. That's going to save the underlying event object in this case. So it's kind of similar to before, but I think the main benefit is looking at our HTML template. So much easier to kind of just render that automatically. So for example, if I go to my models, let's say I actually add a new field here. So let's say, let's add a comment field. We can add a new field pretty easily. This would be a char field. Let's say max length would be 256. All right, so we have a comment field we added. Since we added a new field, we need to migrate those changes. So don't forget, if you change your model structure, you need to migrate. So do manage.py. If this will let me, cd event calendar, Python manage.py make migrations. All right, so since I'm adding a field, it's saying, hey, you need to either provide a value for existing records or provide a default in your comments. So let's do 1 and just enter empty field. Okay. Then we want to do Python manage.py migrate. Okay, so we added a comment field to our event. The only change we need to make in our code is in our models. Where did it go? Models. In our model form, we want to add comments. So if we do that and refresh this page, server's still running. Server's still running. You need to restart it. All right, restart the server. We added this field. So if I refresh this page, we should see our update event. Notice we had a comment field here. So I didn't have to touch my template. My template, HTML template remained the same, but I was able to sneak in a new field. That's because the form handles all that for me. I don't need to update that additional layer when I add a new field or change a field. Does that make sense? I know that was kind of chaotic with the hurdle I kind of ran into, but what questions do you guys have about ModelForm?
Yeah, that last part kind of went over my head. Can you please explain that again? How you add the comment box to the form
Sure.
automatically?
Yep. So the main thing here is we create a class that inherits from ModelForm. ModelForm, you specify what model it's going to be tied to, as in what's the underlying data. So in this case, I want to use event. This fields value specify what fields you want to expose. So in this case, since I added a comment field to my model, the only change I had to make was if I go to my forms, I need to specify that I want that comment field to also be editable by the user. I don't have to add this in there. If I actually take this off, hit save and refresh this, there we go. Now, if I go back to my form and refresh it, notice that comment no longer is here because I specified in my form, my model form over here, I specified that I don't want that as part of my exposed field. I mean, that data record can still be set by me, the developer, but the user can no longer set the comment field.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Okay.
Okay, and then the part of the magic is also, we're just passing a form to our template and rendering it in some manner. In this case, I chose as table. There's a few different ways you could render your form, but basically this just will do every field that is in my model form fields here. So it's just gonna display that and use the proper data, the field types also. So if you notice, like, it's nice that my description is a text field. So it gives me more text, more like a proper control for that. All right, so again, model form makes it much easier to get stuff to kind of work seamlessly, as opposed to you manually having to like update multiple parts of your code. All right, so again, we did it the hard way before. We manually took in the user data, used the post dictionary, and tied the data to the proper fields in our model. With model forms, that is just done again automatically, so you have less work to do. But understand what's going on behind the scenes is effectively the same thing as when we're doing it manually. All right, so given that, we have our form looks a little better. Again, we're rendered as a table, so stuff is kind of aligned. I kind of like that. Let's move on to the next part of kind of making this look better. As we, kind of, as I mentioned before, this doesn't look too hot. It's kind of, there's not much styling. So let's actually figure out how we can add CSS styling. So if I go to let's go to my homepage. Normally, when we want to add CSS styling, we need to do a link to a style sheet. So we do style sheet and then, what is it? SRC, I always forget. Link style sheets. All right, so we just do href. All right, simple enough. All right, so normally in the past, when we want to link a style sheet, we just do something like this. So let's create a style sheet here, styles.css, and let's just do something like body color. Let's make it, let's make everything dark blue. All right, so I want to make all the font on my page dark blue. Right now it's black. Maybe dark blue is the best choice. Let's go with something that's more visible. Let's just go with red. It's gonna burn our retinas a bit, but we'll go with it. All right, so if I do this, again, normally we just need our style sheet to be next to our HTML file or wherever location, and we just need to point to it via our link tag. So if I do this and refresh my homepage, notice that my text is still black. That style never got applied here. If I want to specify font also, we've done that before. Font family. Let's go with Trebuchet. All right. So again, these styles are not being applied. The reason is, again, it's what I mentioned before earlier in the morning, where these files we're creating are not the actual HTML files the user is going to see. These are templates that Django will use to create HTML files for us. So the normal way we link style sheets is not the way we could do it in Django. So there's some additional steps we had to take. So in this case, we need to create a static folder that will kind of house those static elements for us. So our CSS file is not a template. It's the actual file we want to use. So for that, in my apps folder, I'm going to create a new folder called static. Again, that's what a folder I want, not a file. All right, so I'm going to call it static. Again, it has to be named this. You can configure it if you mess with your settings file, but by default, Django is going to look for something called static. So I'm going to put that in my apps folder. All right, so I have fixtures, I have static, I have templates as separate folders within my app folder. Inside of here, that's where I want to put my CSS file. So I'm going to relocate my styles.css and put that into my static folder. Okay, just to reiterate, you can name this, you should name it static by default because Django knows where to look for a static folder. if you want to use some other file naming, you can. You just gotta configure more stuff in the settings file. So it is possible, but we're not gonna mess with that right now. So I create a folder called static, put my styles.css in there. Now, the other stuff I gotta do in my HTML file, I need to load, call load static, like such. All right, so this is gonna actually kind of load all the static files that exist. And then finally, I need to tell my HTML file how to link to it. So it's a little different than before. But otherwise, it is possible. So in this case, my href needs to be similar to like our relative URL path. It's going to be static and the name of the file. So static and styles.css. Okay, so if I save that, let's see if that actually applies. That did not apply because I'm going to refresh this. All right, there we go. So notice that my text now is red. Maybe not the best color choice, but I can apply my cells now. All right, so again, there's documentation for this. So if you don't remember, again, Django will have something to kind of guide you along the way. So managing static files, first result by searching for it. So again, it'll kind of guide you through, again, loading static data. You gotta call load static in your HTML files, and then should be able to go and add whatever static data you want. Okay, this also talks about how you can configure it if you want a different path than the static folder, but you guys can read that if you're curious. But short summary is create a folder called static inside your app folder, and you can dump your CSS files in there. And then to link it, use a syntax of loading static, and then the href should look something like this. Okay, so let's add a few more styling elements, so just so I can make this look a little nicer. So let's say your event calendar. Let's make that, let's see, make this a div.
Hey, Ankur.
Yep.
In your in your style.css, could you put Bootstrap in there and then use Bootstrap?
Yep. For Bootstrap, you could put that inside your normal HTML file. So you can do it either way. Like here, you could link like you did before. So if I go to Bootstrap, I'm gonna search for. You can add this link file that we've done before. I guess I should hit copy. You could add that normally into your HTML file. The reason is because this is an external style sheet. So it's looking on the web for the style sheet versus this is local. So it's looking on your local machine for this style sheet. So in this case, if I add this, I want to use something from there. So I think there's button styles. So where's my button here? Right here. So if I want to use class, does anyone remember the button styles? BTN warning, was it? Or info?
Yeah, and then also success or something like that.
There we go. So
Okay, there we go.
button info. Yeah, so Bootstrap, you can link that as before. Great question though. It's only for local style sheets. You got to kind of use a different syntax for Django. So just get familiar with it. Again, don't kind of memorize it. Just know that you need to do something different and know how to look it up so that if you want to use style sheets, you can do it. I'm just going to jazz this up a little bit more so that I can do my last example for today. So where's my CSS file? There it is. Pull some files here. So I had form. Way too many files open. All right, I was creating a div. Where'd that div go?
Back up.
Gotcha, there with that here.
Yeah.
I see. All right, so let's create so we have body nav. Let's just keep it in there. So in my CSS file, let's create a new selector. Hope you guys remember your CSS syntax. So dot body dash nav is my div name. Let's give that a background color of dark cyan. I was had to refresh my server. That didn't do anything. Body nav. Oh, it's an ID select, not a class selector. There it is. All right, so we have like a header, some style here. Nothing too exciting going on here, but getting some styling going on here. Not sure. Why did my color go away? Yeah, for some reason I don't have a color anymore. Let's edit here. Will that work? I'm just going to stop debugging here. Stop debug. That calendar, Python. All right, so got some orange in there. All right, so the key thing I want to show with this is, all right, I added styling here. If I go to, let's say, an event, notice I lose that header, right? I probably want like a consistent header throughout my website, not just on one page. So let's say, you know, I want to add this a similar thing here to my detail page. It's not too much effort. You know, I could just go to my index, copy what I had here. So I just had, you know, a nav, not too much copy and pasting. That div doesn't need to be there. So let's go to my detail page and let me put that into here. Without the nested nav. All right, so refresh. That doesn't have. All right, so again, a few more steps. I need to include my CSS files because that's what's missing from my detail page. So let me add that up here. Save that. Refresh. All right, there we go. We got something similar to what we had before. Maybe not quite. Let's see, homepage. That looks better than this. Oh, because I had the style sheet. Yep. So again, the whole point of this is I'm kind of being redundant in terms of my developer work. Again, in this case, I only have like 4 different pages. I have index, detail, I have create, and form. Not too many pages. It wouldn't be, you know, a full day of work just to have all these things look the same. Refresh. All right, there we go. So we got some consistency between our homepage here and our detail page. Right. But then also if I go to update event, notice I lose my header. So now I got to add my header to my update or my form page and then also my delete page. I guess I don't have delete page, but in any event, it's kind of redundant, kind of manual work that I shouldn't need to do, especially if I need to like change one header, like I want to change it. I might need to change all the other pages. There should be a better way, and luckily there is. So instead of doing this repeatedly, you can kind of create a template for your HTML templates. The way to do that is basically, let's create a new page. I'm going to call this base.html. And this, I'm just going to keep that in my templates folder. So it's not actually in my events folder in this directory structure I have there. This is going to be my main look for my page where I want to fill in content depending on each unique, I guess, detailed page I want to show. So in this case, let me just create an HTML base. I'm going to copy what I had in index. So copy all this good stuff. Jump back there. And then I had, what else I had? I had your event calendar. My nav. All right, so this is just an HTML page, but let's look at index, right? Index has all this is the same, but my content is a little different in my main section, body main. Same thing for my detail page, right? My body main is different, but everything else should be the same. All right, so let's actually figure out how we can actually make it so that this base HTML is reused for each of these pages. And this is where you have the ability to do it with Django. So if I go to, let's start with my index page, all right? I already have all of this stuff coded in my base HTML file that I just created. So I don't need any of this stuff until I get to my main content. So I'm going to delete all this. And this is the only part I actually only unique content for my homepage, right? Everything else I could use for my base. But how do I actually get that kind of linked up. So this is where let's see, in our base, let's create a block. So here I'm going to do that percent curly braces sign that we saw before. Then we need to create a block. So to create a block, we just type block and give it a name. So in this case, let's call it main content. And then, like similar to for loops and if statements, we need to also tell our, I guess, HTML file where this block ends. So we're going to do end block. Now I could create, basically automatically insert anything here by specifying a value for main content in any other HTML file. So to do that, let's go to my index file. At the very top, I'm going to add a line that says extends base.html. What this is saying is basically take all the code from base HTML and let me insert some items into it. So for that, we had a block that we created. So you got to match the block name. So if I do block main content, and then end my block just like before. End block. What this is going to do, it's going to take this chunk of code and insert it in this area right here, and then render a HTML page from that. So again, these are all just templates that Django's using to create an actual HTML page for the user. So if I have a block section here, and I specify that, hey, my index is going to extend that base.html, and I want to insert this specific content into there. Given that, if I kind of copy this and go to my detail page, I can do something very similar. So I'm going to get rid of all the duplicated stuff. Bye-bye. I don't have to rewrite. Like if I were creating this, it'd save me much more time. In this case, I already had these values before. Do the same thing. Copy this. And that goes in my main content section. All right, so now that I have that, let's change one of our styling things. So if I go to my CSS file, let's change our.
You forgot the percent sign for the page. For the create page, yeah, up there. For the extend base.html.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite.
The other percent sign.
Other.
Extends.
Thank you. Good catch. Yep. Need to make sure you have proper syntax. So, yep. Thanks, Musa. Saved me some trouble that we've run into. Yeah. Okay. Thanks again. All right. So I have that. Let's change the styling. So let's make I don't know. Let's make this pink. We're gonna be hard to read. Give me a color that I can work with. All right, let's go dark violet. Let's change our color up here. Let's make this a nice bluish, dark blue. That's not dark enough. All right, so made some changes. So now if I actually go to my pages here, let's refresh and see what happens. All right, notice that style change. If I go back to my home page, notice that's consistent. And if I want to add it to, let's say, my update event page, right now I don't have any styling here. Super easy to add because my base has the style sheet link already for me, so I don't have to redo any of that. I have the Bootstrap already there also. So if I go to my form page, the only thing I need to do is delete the excess, which is all this stuff. Get rid of this. Just so we go through the motions one more time. You need to, first thing you want to do is extend whatever template you want to add to. So in this case, I'll do open curly brace, close curly brace. With percent signs, I'm going to do extends with an S and the name in quotation marks. So base.html is the file I'm working with. And I want to specify which block I want to extend. So in this case, I could do block main contents, and make sure that's in percent curly braces. And likewise, I need to end that block just like before. So end block, one word. Now this should be the only unique items for this page. Otherwise, you can use everything from base.html. So if I save that, go to my update page, refresh, notice, all right, I get my nice kind of header there and the font that I was using before too. All right, so again, this will save you a lot of redundant code. I know, I think it was like 1 or 2 weeks ago, we were trying to create multiple pages, and it was kind of redundant work to kind of, create like a header or like a navigation menu on each page. Well, this is the way you would do it in Django to kind of just cut down that work. You could have multiple block sections inside of one page. So for example, let's say, I don't want my title of my page just to be my HTML page. Let's create another block here. So I'll just do percent curly braces. Let's do block, let's call this page title, and then we need to end our block. So end block here too, end block. All right, so now we have another block section that we could update if we want to. We don't have to specify it, but if I go to my index, I could add that block section here. So percent curly braces, the block name, the page title. Right, end block here. Let's give it a title. So let's say this is my home page. All right, so if I save that, let's go to my home page. End block without a space, not bad. Save that. Okay, there we go. So notice my tab says this is my home page, but if I go to pool tournament, I don't have a name specified, so it defaults to the URL. But if I go to my detail page, I could actually add the title of my event. So let's do that. So this is going to be block page title. Again, that's the name of the block I gave it. You could give it whatever title, whatever block name you want, just be consistent. All right, here, let's actually use the event name as the title for this page. I'm going to put this up here. So that event name should be the HTML page title. So I save that and then go here. Okay, so notice that my tab right now is just the URL. So I didn't have a title before. If I refresh, all right, cool. It says pool tournament now. Okay, so using templates, again, just gonna save you a lot of work and make your web pages more consistent with one another so that you don't have to repeat your code over and over. And that's easy to make a mistake. And also, if you need to update something, instead of going through like a dozen pages, you should be able to just use your your base files and update it only in one place. Similar to concepts we talked about with like Python and creating proper OOP design. Okay, so that kind of covers model forms. Again, model forms just make your lives easier. You don't have to do all the designing of the web page for the form. It's kind of automatically done for you if you use it properly. Also, just processing the form, model form makes it much easier. Using CSS files or any static data, just be aware that there's a different, structure you need to follow for Django. Again, there's documentation for it, so if you kind of forget, it should be easy to kind of just Google, hey, how do I link a CSS file in Django to my HTML templates? Should get good resources. And then the final concept we went over today is using these blocks so that you could have template files that could reuse HTML code very easily. With that, what questions do you guys have about model form, using CSS files, or using, templates within HTML templates? Does that make sense? You guys kind of, the syntax is going to take a while to get used to, so you're just going to get more practice with that through the challenges, but do the concepts kind of make sense here?
I'll say yeah.
Okay, I got one vote of yes from Tim. Hopefully you guys aren't feeling too uncomfortable. Again, the main core of today and tomorrow is going to be understanding CRUD. So just understand what pieces you need to allow the user to add data, update data, and delete data, and also obviously read data from the database. So you can get more practice with that today. So if I go to our challenges, see, today's the 12th, week 7. right, so the event calendar, we gave you some code to kind of work with and kind of add CRUD capabilities. For today, we're gonna give you this to-do list. So it's something similar we did, I think, during HTML week where we created a to-do list, but we're gonna do it through Django now. So we want you guys to be able to do all of these CRUD capabilities where you can show a to-do list, be able to see the details for it, create a new item for your list, and again, just do the same stuff before, where you can create a new item using post. Put is just another HTTP method. So there's get, post, put, there's delete also. But yeah, you're gonna have to create, this project from scratch. Actually, I lied about that. Looks like we give you requirements.txt. All right, so just a to-do app, something we've done before, but not done in Django before. Also, on today's curriculum page, there is a tutorial. It'd be good to kind of go through that. It's not too long, just kind of understanding how to use ModelForm and also just getting more practice with CRUD. So that's part of your assignment. Also, go through the tutorial, make sure you kind of understand how to use ModelForm and kind of get that CRUD capability really easily using ModelForm. Okay, so with that, I'm going to leave you guys to get to your challenges for today. Just to reiterate, make sure you fill out the, let me stop the recording here.